Hello, my name is Bradley and I'm your host of The Internal Game. Before I get into today's video about power versus force and present-based magnetism, I do want to remind you that we have an amazing Skool community going on right now where we go deeper into these teachings, especially about present-based identity and group coaching, things like that. Lots of good stuff going on over there. Check it out. All right, so power versus force. We can kind of intellectually understand that we are connected to everything, right? That we are just in a version of ourselves that experiences certain things, and all you gotta do is change the version, things like that, and then we experience something different, right? New stories, true story, all this good stuff. I hear all the time, I know I'm chosen. I know I'm everything. Where's that? How come I can't stop looking at where it's at? How come I keep going back to these shitty thoughts and quote unquote old story, right? Reminder, it's not old if you're still telling it, right? It's current. But I can't stop going back to that. But I know that I'm everything. Do you? Again, we can intellectually understand maybe how consciousness works and that like it's just responding to us inside first, outside second. But do you know that you are everything? Do you know that everything is actually reflecting you? That's it. That's it. Because if you did, why you tripping? Why you tripping, dudes and dudettes? Like I can't even put like a number amount on how often I hear this. I know I'm everything. Okay. So if we know we are everything, if we know that we are creator of our world and everything's in response to us, why are we tripping? Why are we trying to force things? Why are we constantly looking out there trying to manipulate, trying to force affirmations, trying to convince ourselves and especially another person of a reality that we say that we believe in? That we say that it should be fairly easy because we're just stepping into a state, right? But we're having issues going back to these old stories that, again, current stories, if you're still telling them, they're not old. They actually have to stop being told and stop being entertained for them to be considered old. Okay? We do this because we don't really know that we are everything. It goes back to the Neville Goddard quote, like, what would you possibly be concerned about if you really believe that imagination creates reality? Now, there's a little deeper level here, in the sense that identity is strong, belief systems are strong, and the strongest force in the human psyche, by the way, psyche, the mind, not in the world, the human psyche, is to maintain consistency with how it sees itself. So that means this self-concept, this image that you have of yourself, that you've created for yourself, doesn't want change. It doesn't want to die off. So we can find these channels, and we can find certain things and say, hey, listen, oh, this makes sense, perfect, I get it, I'm everything. I hear this all the time, I'm everything. Okay, cool, I know that, I know that you are. And we find the channels. And we say, oh man, why can't I get it? Because I know this intellectually. If you're trying to change an identity from the identity, it'll give you a couple days max, 3 days max, before it pulls you right, before the stories come up with all this proof about what actually is happening, what's happened before, why this isn't gonna work, why there's something wrong with you, and like maybe you're doing something wrong. It'll give you a few days max to be all confident in your new way. And then it's like, oh, nope, I gotta maintain consistency with how I see myself. Here's some thoughts, here's some evidence, here's some stories. And if you bite it, then guess what? You're back, if you ever left. If you ever left. Probably not, because if you're reacting to it, then you're still identified with it, right? So the reason I go the presence route is because, number one, that's exactly what you are, right? But presence is powerful. Powerful. It seeks nothing. That kind of state actually knows that it's everything. You can feel it. can sense it. It's aware of the reflection. It's seeing somebody be able to say something that maybe you held in your consciousness without reactivity and saying, oh, okay, cool. And then not reacting, so for sure it's on its way out. Presence is saying, hey, this is what I want to experience. And then going about your day. Without force. Without trying to manipulate the outside. Because presence knows that the outside is a reflection of the inside. It knows that. Well before videos even came into play, presence was around. Right? The idea of a self-concept, the thought patterns of there came from the place of presence. Humankind came from a place of presence. Everything that you see, heard, experienced, ever experienced came from the stillness, came from presence. It's the place where all things arise. It's the place all things are. Underneath the mental chatter and the mind concepts of self. Right? So if you have a not so ideal concept of self, when you're saying I am everything, all this does is add to this little self, this ego, and say I'm God. It's like, okay, cool, I'm God. Hell yeah, I got this. And it'll give you a couple days, sometimes not even that long, of really embodying this, like, yeah, I got this state. But if you're not used to being aware of thought, if you're not used to not believing in thought, if you're not used to being present, or even starting that kind of process, and you're used to buying every single thought that you get, and it's so chaotic because number one, it's not you, and it's highly unstable, right? That's why you're believing all these different thoughts. If you believe one, you believe them all, right? If you're not used to being aware of these thoughts, you're just going to get drugged. It's going to pull you right back. You are actually presence. You are actually God. This is what God is. Like, one of the realizations that I had back trying to manifest my wife was when I was affirming like a banshee everywhere. And I remember going back to where I was staying and I was like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I'm over here saying that I'm a priority just so this person thinks I'm a priority. But clearly what I'm doing and what I'm being is making her the priority. So that's why I was getting a reflection of not being one. Okay, because we never really get what we want, we always get what we are and what we're being. And if you are trying to force something, you are implying that you are not these things. If you are trying to affirm your way into something, you're implying that you're not these things. And granted, trust me, I've attracted things with affirmation before. I have. And I've also lost them fairly soon afterwards because nothing in me changed fundamentally. I still was scared. I still had the fear patterns. I'd forced the manifestation. Nothing about me changed, and I ended up getting the same reflection because what I was fearful, insecure, doubtful. I was resonating at a person who was rejected. So people can only match you. People can only reflect back you. And so that's what happened again. Even though I forced this affirmation, it was very forceful. When I stepped into my power and started to observe my thoughts, because I read this book called The Power of Now. They used to scare me, by the way, because I was like, I don't want to be present. Maybe when I'm 70 years old and I got my empire and the woman and the money, then I'll get more present. But until then, I got shit to do. And then one day I had enough of the pain, because even though I'd forced a few things in my life and I wasn't maintaining anything, and I got done with the pain, I read this book and I started to be aware of my thoughts. I started to be aware of the emotions I was having without latching onto them and creating story. And I started to see these thoughts for what they were. They were just thoughts. It's just a thought. And when I could see them, I was no longer being them, and I started to let these stories go, right? And then it made a lot of sense because my wife came back fast. A lot of things started taking shape in my reality. It started making sense. I was like, oh, it's kind of like the Neville quote: "You already are who you desire to be, and your refusal to believe this is the reason it's not so." Well, all these little identity schemes, these thought patterns, the doubt, the fear, the trying to force, is the refusal to believe it part. That's the refusal to believe it part. You already are these things. If you are everything, then you are already these things. And so all you have to do is stop telling these stories and stop trying to force something, because you already have it. But the thing about identity, and go with mine, is it can't live in the present moment. It needs a past and it needs a future. Right? But like when we are in these identities, even just energetically, we're all energetic, but like just walking around constantly needing something from somebody, especially think about SP for a second. Think about this person you're trying to manifest, and you are everything, and you are connected to this person for sure. Remember, like I say, you can never lose the person, but you are in charge of the experience. They're an extension of you, right? So, because you can't lose what you are, and they are you and you are them, right? So you're in charge of this experience, and if you're walking around constantly in this state of lack and obsession and need and fear, and there they are, feeling you, matching you back to you. Right? How do you think that feels for them? Is that like a loving, harmonious relationship like you want? And then because we're in these states, then when we don't get the text back, then when we don't get the whatever we think that it is that we need to feel whole and safe and loved and secure, and forget about the whole part when they were actually there in the physical experience once, and it still wasn't enough. But like, do you think that's the end state, the fear, the insecurity, the doubt, the longing, that kind of state? Do you think that's the end state for what it is that you say that you want? Because what's actually happening is what you're wanting and what you say you're wanting are two different things. What you're wanting is what the identity wants. If it doesn't feel enough, if it doesn't feel chosen, if it doesn't actually feel like someone can commit to it, then that's what it's going to keep creating, because the strongest force in the human psyche is this need to stay consistent with how it sees itself. But what you say you want is, I want a loving, harmonious relationship. If that was the case, you'd have one. If you actually wanted it, you would have it. And that's the cold truth sometimes about this whole thing. If you actually wanted it, you would have it. But like the thing is we don't really know what this subconscious stuff is doing, what these beliefs are doing, what these thought patterns are, where these thought patterns are coming from, and how it just takes us anytime that it wants to throw some thoughts out there, and we just bite it. Because again, the strongest force in the human psyche, not the world, not God, and the human psyche, a mind-made self, the strongest force there is its need to stay consistent with how it sees itself. You are bigger than the human psyche. But if you're not aware of that, it's going to pull you every time, and you're going to keep trying to force things into being so you feel safe, loved, secure, all this good stuff, right? But then when you bring it in, you're still not going to feel safe, loved, and secure, because these things can never do it for you, have never done it for you in the first place. And all that happened was when that person was there, you ran the stories to stay consistent with how you see yourself after the attachment set in. It got pushed out, and then you stayed in the stories. That's it. And then you made this person like this magical thing trying to manifest, because you spent so much time focusing on trying to manifest. It just seems out of reach, and I got to change this, I got to do that. No, get present. Step back into your power. Stop believing a bunch of thoughts coming from an identity that is not who you are. Because when you step into your power, guess what? You get different resonance. Have you ever been around somebody who doesn't want anything from you? They're just there to love and hang out and chill. It's a good time, isn't it? It's a good time. Well, your person, the money, whatever it is, feels you wanting it. Feels like you need something from, like you're trying to take something from it, so you can feel whole and loved and secure and safe. And they are not going to give it to you like that. So because they can't, number one, right? But like they're damn sure not going to do it if it's nonsense, it's illusion. So you want to start being aware of thoughts, being aware of your inner body, your breath, bringing yourself back home to you, because that's what it is you're actually craving. And getting more present, focusing on the inner body, breathing, living your day like in the now, right here, like as much as you can, bringing it back. This is the ultimate I don't abandon myself move. You're no longer wanting for anything. You're no longer needing for anything. You're no longer having these super strong desires and tripped out on manifestation content and keeping things away from you, by the way. You're no longer doing that. And then now you're actually in this position where you already are who you desire to be, because you're no longer in the refusal to believe it part. Right? You're in the more of a knowing that you are that you say you are, who you desire to be. These things are going to find their way to you, just like they did me. Now, I'm not hating on anybody who does affirmation and self-concept and anything like that. Those things are great. Like they will change experience, because they still are, you're still going to get a reflection of what you're doing inside. But you're damn sure going to get after that, you're going to continue getting the reflection of what you're being. And if you haven't changed, being insecure and fearful and doubtful and thinking that you're incomplete, then in due time, after this person shows back up or the money comes in, whatever the case may be, like in due time, you're going to get reflected your state of being, because state of being is king. So if you haven't started to be aware of thought patterns and let them go, they're going to eat you up. If you think that every thought is important, the mind is going to have its way with you, because it has been, and it will continue doing so as long as you keep taking it seriously. As long as you are highly identified with mind, thinking that these thoughts and these things are who you are, then life is going, even in the coolest of self-concepts, there's still going to be fear. There's still going to be longing for something else, because it's not who you are. It still wasn't it. I had a call the other day from somebody. It was a great call, by the way. And she was like, I have changed my entire life with manifestation. She's like, with living only in imagination. And she's like, and something, it's like, and she's like, I've got the career, the house, the money, all this stuff. And she was like, I believe it. Fuck yeah, if you do that, you sure will, right? And she was like, but something was like still missing. I was still longing for something. It's like, yeah, you. You're still missing you, right? Like, all these things are great, but they're not who you are. The person's cool. The money's cool. The relationship's cool. All these things are great, but like, you got to get in touch with you, even though you are everything. I think you know what I mean. Step into your power. Allow things to happen for you. I promise you they'll happen so much faster than you can even think, if you actually started to get out of the refusal to believe it part. And that's identity. That's mind-made shit in general. The mind causes drama. The mind is addicted to solving problems that it created. Addicted to it. Starts shit, creates shit, and then tries to solve it. And then once something's back, or once something comes in, finds more problem. It is not to be taken seriously. If you let your mind run your life, if you let your mind run your life, you will experience shit at some point. And you're going to continue longing, because it's not who you are. It's not what you are. You're not your mind. And as long as we think that, we're going to be trying to chase and convince and manipulate, even in the coolest of self-concepts. There'll be maybe not as chasing as much, but there'll be some form of underlying fear somewhere, because it's still not who you are. Some form of, I gotta get this next thing, because there's something in me still missing just a little bit. I gotta get it. And you can bypass all that. Like, you don't have to change it into another concept. You step into your own personal magnetism by being present, because the whole world's going to shift around this. You are energetically connected to everything. And when you drop stories that are keeping you in these lower states, when you drop stories that are keeping this identity just fucking flowing, and these belief systems just a blooming and blossoming and still just hanging out, when you stop that, the world is going to rearrange around this, because then you're going to feel whole. You're going to feel complete. Yeah, whole and complete. You're going to feel loved. You're going to feel like you are everything. You're actually going to feel this. You're going to know this, right? And safe, secure, sound, all this stuff. Light. And then the world is going to reflect this back to you, because God makes no mistake and always gives man which man first gives himself, because there can be no mistake. There's only you out there. So if you're walking around in this state of being that is fearful, lustful, incomplete, insecure, doubtful, all this stuff, you're going to get a reflection of that, even if you force something into play. Everything is connected to you. You are everything. So the only way you're going to know that is if you actually start getting out of these patterns. Because until then, you're going to be trying to change identity with identity, or from the identity. Now, sometimes a big spark of inspiration and pain can shift this, and you can be like, no, I'm doing this now, and you can stick with it, but it's still taking on more beliefs about self that just are not eternally true. Again, if it can be changed, it's not true. The fact that you're God cannot be changed. The fact that you're any self-concept can be changed. So it's not true. If you really believe that you are God, if you really believe that you are everything, you would not be trying to force. And even of the coolest imaginations, and even the coolest of self-concepts, you would still be looking for you. So there's nothing quite like the present state, and you're probably not going to be perfect at it unless you have some type of miracle surrender part like Eckhart Tolle did, right? But it's a constant returning back to truth. And when you do this, you are no longer carrying these vibes and these stories, and everything that you say that you want is going to find its way to you because it's going to reflect your wholeness. And also you're not in story as to why it's not there. That's just the main thing. It's just story, and like you're telling the stories because it's all chaotic because you're just trying to stay consistent with how you see yourself mentally. All one big illusion. Okay. The actual magnetism isn't force. It's stepping into this presence-based identity. That's magnetism. Not longing, not seeking, not searching. Knowing right here, right now, and then everything's going to reflect back this knowing. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. See you Monday. See you soon.